Welcome, everyone. My name is Ashley Breakfield. I'm a senior associate in Farella's real estate industry group and wanted to thank you for joining us today for our panel, Returning to the Office, Legal and Practical Considerations for Keeping Your Team Safe. As Margaret mentioned, this is the kickoff event in our real estate education series, and it's slated to take place over the next several months with a panel discussion like this each month on a topic that we think is relevant and important kind of for where we are right now. As she mentioned, our next event is going to be on June 8th, also at 10, and the focus will be on kind of the status of commercial eviction moratoria and also some discussion around leasing and how that's changed in sort of the COVID era. And we've clearly hit on an important topic here, given how many folks are joining us today. So let's get started. I want to introduce our two fantastic panelists, Holly Sutton and Tom Cashin. Holly is a partner at Farella and chair of the Employment Practice Group. Holly has extensive experience counseling clients on employment-related matters, as well as defending clients in wrongful termination and employment discrimination actions. And Tom is Senior Vice President for Property Management and Construction Services at Shorenstein, where he's been since 1995. Tom is responsible for overseeing Shorenstein's property management and construction activities in the Western United States. And as we'll hear, both Holly and Tom have been working on COVID-related issues since the beginning of the pandemic. Either counseling clients or handling on-the-ground protocols and compliance. So I think there's a lot to discuss, and I'm going to turn it over to Holly to kick us off.
Great, thanks so much. And it's really great to see some familiar faces and friends here today. So thanks for joining us. We thought we'd start by just giving you a very quick overview of some of the legal requirements. And then we're going to turn back, since we have Tom here, to jump into sort of more practical advice, a little more detail around the things that matter most, and also reflect some of the questions that many of you submitted in advance. So Margaret, maybe let's go ahead with that first slide. And these are the Cal OSHA regs, which were just updated last week on May 5th. In a few slides in, I'm going to give you the link where you can find this. I think Margaret also used her magic where when you get this PowerPoint, you'll be able to click on these links. They're live. But you'll see here that they issued these temporary standards. Not all of these standards will apply to everyone, but some of them will. And you'll see on the next slide, there are some fact sheets which are quite useful, and there is this model written program. So one thing that everyone will have to have coming back to the office will be a written COVID prevention plan. And they have a model plan here. We've done quite a few of these, including for some of our participants today. We're happy to help you with that. But they do have a model plan if you want to try to do it yourself. So this website is quite useful, and on this next screen here, you'll see that it's on the DIR website for the state. Now, the written plan that I mentioned, the regs are quite detailed in what needs to be included, and some of these are sort of common sense, but they want them essentially reduced to one written document where you have all in one place, rules and guidelines around having your employees report their symptoms or exposure to COVID. This is something we've all been dealing with for over a year now. And then your policies for how you handle that, guidance on what needs to be confidential and when you're gathering this information. And then you'll see on the next screen information about how you continue to screen. So the screening process and the screening requirements will be ongoing, and you'll want to give that a little thought. And then ways to go in and identify for each of your individual work spaces, the interactions, the areas where you're going to have higher risk, and they want you to do that all in a written plan. I think on the next page, we get into where you start to think about increased filtration. And that's something Tom's going to weigh in a little bit, because for most of us who are in in a building with other tenants, that may be something that involves your landlord. So we're going to circle back on that. And continued guidance, I think next page here, this thing goes on, it's quite extensive, is how you investigate and respond if you continue to have cases in the workplace, very specific guidelines on that. So you want to be familiar with all of these. And there are continued requirements around isolation and quarantine, which will now vary if you have employees who are vaccinated. So we're recommending that you track whether your employees are vaccinated enough, at least in California. As many of you may know, other states are in the process of potentially passing state laws that either prevent employers from gathering that information or prohibit operations from requiring vaccines. So you want to be careful if you're outside the state, but in California, you certainly can collect that information, and we're recommending that you do that. On the next page, we get into ongoing testing, making sure that if somebody may have been exposed in your workplace, you are offering COVID testing at no cost to them, so that they can get in and get tested right away, something to flag. And then just some general requirements I was going to cover on the next slide, I think. For those who are in San Francisco, in addition to having the COVID prevention plan, you're also going to need your illness and injury prevention plan. That's been a requirement in place for years and years and years. Many of our sort of office-based clients didn't have an IIPP, or if they had one, they lost track of it a long time ago, because unlike manufacturing and construction and other industries where these are active documents that are used a lot, that up until recently, the hazards in the standard office building were fairly minor, and many didn't have the IIPP. If you don't, you'll want to get one. Now the CPP that we just went over can be combined with your illness and injury prevention plan, or they can be separate. But we're telling all of our clients, now is the time when you are most likely to have an OSHA inspection, and they're going to ask for that illness and injury prevention plan. So you want to make sure you have one of those. Some other sort of general things to cover and that are more San Francisco specific. And if you have offices outside of San Francisco County, you want to check your own county guidelines. They do differ. In San Francisco, you can now open up to 50% of your normal maximum capacity. And any employees who are vaccinated do not count against that 50%. So again, that's why it's useful now to start collecting that information on who's fully vaccinated. Just to keep it simple, we're recommending that you don't keep the data, you just keep a list of those who have verified, and you can verify by showing your vaccination card or sending a picture, but you, the employer, don't need to keep that photo once you've recorded that someone's fully vaccinated and the date, keeping in mind that fully vaccinated means 2 weeks past your either second dose or first dose for a single dose treatment. So if you got your second dose last week, you still have another week, right, before you're fully vaccinated. Other guidance in San Francisco, conference rooms and meetings can accommodate up to 50%. So if you're having meetings in a conference room, you cannot fill that room up, right? You got to still have space for people to spread out. Indoor break rooms are allowed at 50% capacity. This will include your vaccinated staff, and they want you to have 6 feet of distancing, because if people are eating and drinking, they can take those masks off, right? They need to. So everyone's right now looking at their outdoor spaces to see, putting out picnic tables or whatever you can do to provide more options for people when they're eating and drinking. Indoor break rooms, again, open, but you need to try to stay 6 feet apart. And then people are still required to wear their masks. There's some interesting guidance from the CDC right now around allowing people to visit with others in indoor spaces without masks. That is not being applied to offices and work. That's for private interactions. So you still have to wear your mask unless you are in a private office where others are not expected to come in. So the public isn't coming in and out. Other colleagues are not coming in and out. Then in your private space, you can take that mask off. But in a cubicle, you're still required to wear the mask. Still guidance out there that people should be permitted to work from home if possible. And of course, everyone's asking, well, what does that mean? How are they enforcing that? And that's something we kind of work through on an individualized basis, but that's still the official policy is, encouraging work from home when possible. And again, other counties have slightly different language. This is San Francisco specific. As I mentioned earlier, you're still screening for your COVID-19 symptoms, and this information can be found on the sf.gov site. So we've got a link there. All right, and just a couple more minutes to show you, there's a lot here to digest. So if you're the lucky person tasked with understanding this, give yourself some time, right? There's a lot to digest. You'll see on this next screen, there's some checklists in San Francisco, which I think are quite helpful, that are required to be posted. So you'll want to be aware that those are out there. And I don't think I did a screen on this, but on the SF website, there are tips that tell you need both this health and safety plan checklist, as well as a social distancing protocol, which is located at Appendix A of that order. So be aware that you have to have, in addition to the COVID prevention plan, you need these other 2 postings if you're in San Francisco. And then I think in the next slide here, that's the end of and the link there for that order. And then I think the last item I've got, what's our next slide there? Oh, that's just a reference to the sick leave, which we'll talk about a little later, but want to make sure everyone's aware that California state law requires additional sick leave for people to use related to getting the vaccine or recovering from the vaccine or exposed to the vaccine. So we'll probably circle back on that. That's kind of a very fast, very dense overview of the legal requirements that are out there right now. And then I think, Margaret, you can probably stop sharing the screen. There we go. Okay. All right.
So thanks, Holly. I think one of the first, and I see some chats, please keep the chats coming and your questions coming. To the extent we can build them in as we're going, we will, but we will reserve some time at the end for Q&A where we can kind of go through some of those questions as well. So just because we're not responding yet, don't worry, we will. I think the first thing we were going to talk about were sort of common area challenges, and some of the questions actually we've gotten so far are related to that as well. And for Tom, kind of what the landlord position is on common areas, and they're thinking of things like building lobbies, garages, elevators, security, and kind of Tom, some things that you've crossed that have been issues that you've had to deal with, and also sort of what the position has been on the landlord side in terms of what's your responsibility and to what lengths you're going to go to enforce mandates or enforce tenant wishes around kind of what they want coming in and out of the building.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge that we faced when this pandemic first started was all the various agencies coming out with requirements, recommendations, advice. And And, like if you were talking, Holly was going over the Cal OSHA requirement, and as it depends on your perspective. If you're looking at it from an employer's perspective, you want to be keenly aware of the Cal OSHA requirements. If you're looking at it from a property management or landlord perspective, you're probably going to focus more on CDC requirements, recommendations, as well as, city and county Department of Health directives, because those kind of speak to the facilities and what the owner of the facility is required to do or to provide, et cetera, to keep the property as safe as possible. The OSHA requirements are directed more towards when you're within the tenant space. It's responsibilities of the employer to protect their employees. So I kind of view those as inside a tenant space requirements. Now for us, interestingly enough, we have to play both roles, because in some cases we're acting as the employer and in other cases we're acting as a landlord. But from a landlord perspective, as I said, the challenge was going through all the different requirements and recommendations that were coming through and identifying, which ones were the most important to follow. And obviously we focus on CDC guidelines initially in terms of readying our common areas to accommodate people still coming into the building in the midst of the pandemic. And that of course involved, a ton of signage, asking people to stop and, self-evaluate. Have you been exposed? Do you have a temperature today? If you're answering yes to any of these questions, then don't come in, please. Once you're in, we had markers on, we have markers on the floors or any areas where lines may develop to keep people at a 6 foot distance. Graphics were probably the biggest thing that we incorporated to address the pandemic. From elevators, limiting the number of occupants in an elevator, to common area seating. We either remove seating or we put down placards where you should not sit and where you could sit to still maintain the 6 foot distance. And then, training our vendors on how to deal with people coming into the building. Primarily, security guards were the first point of contact for somebody entering the main lobby. And of course, you had the challenge of somebody coming in without a mask, even though there was a mask mandate. So we had particular instructions for our security staff on how to address those kind of issues. Parking is another challenge in that, a lot of people, we have some garages where we can only accommodate parking based on valet service. There's individuals that don't want somebody getting in their car and potentially contaminating their vehicle. So to the extent we could accommodate them, we allowed them to self-park and essentially have a touchless experience from the garage to their tenant space. If we couldn't accommodate them, they needed to find another place to park that could accommodate them. But we also had the challenge with our vendors. There's some parking attendants that were a little reluctant to get into somebody else's car for the same concerns. But, they were all provided with various PPEs so that they could get in and wipe down a car that they were in, a steering wheel, door handle, that sort of stuff. And they were wearing gloves, et cetera, to ensure that they were being protected as much as possible. So like I said, I think the main focus was on communicating to people entering the building. We did that primarily through signage. The next thing would have been mechanical. And I think that covers two components. One would be just massive disinfecting that our janitorial staff took on for all the common areas, any high touch areas. They were constantly being disinfected. Tenant spaces were being cleaned to a new level throughout the pandemic, continue to be. And And so as a result, our janitorial staff continued to stay busy because their scope of services increased significantly in order to address any high touch areas and that sort of thing. Also, we focused on our HVAC system and our plumbing system. And with the HVAC, we increased run times, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And in some cases, we're running systems 24/7. Others, we might do a startup 2 hours earlier than we have in the past, and we run it much later. Certainly while there are any occupants in the building, which would include any janitorial staff.
Tom, I might just jump in there because that is one of the guidelines is anybody who's using a common area conference room or anything, the recommendation is to turn on the air, open the window sort of in advance of in a space. And it sounds like that's for building wide, that's been your practice as well to get that air circulating before people come in.
Yes, and the whole goal is to increase the number of air exchanges and per the recommendations. And you know, in San Francisco, most buildings can accommodate a full air exchange at least once an hour, just by opening up your outside air. So you can have a complete flush of outside air for almost any building system within an hour, which is that's pretty frequent. The city of San Francisco allows you to calculate air exchanges based not only on outside air, but filtered air as well. So if you're running your air through filters of MERV 13 or higher, that can be considered part of the air exchange as well, which then enables us to do full building exchanges 5-6 times an hour. So that's very frequent.
So it sounds like one of the questions I had for you kind of on this and frankly on some of the items you've already talked about, which I'm sure is on the mind of everyone else, is these are things you have put into place, right? Building owners, you know, property management companies have put into place. And interestingly, a lot of times I think the offices have stayed pretty vacant. All these, everything's ready, but there's nobody there. As the folks start to return to the office, I'm wondering, is there a plan or a timeline for how long you expect these types of signage, limiting number of people in the elevator, air circulation? Is this kind of indefinite for right now, or do you have any sort of sense of how long you would keep some of these practices in place? Obviously, some are required per, you know, what Holly told us earlier.
Right. Well, I think the short answer is we'll continue to look to CDC guidelines, and then of course check with local health departments to see if they have any more stringent requirements than the CDC. But I think the idea, I mean, my biggest fear when occupancy starts increasing at a building, particularly if it's a significant increase, I think our choke points are at the elevators. If we continue to be limited to, you know, 2, 3, 4 persons per elevator, there could be significant lines in the lobby. It could take a significant amount of time to get occupants to their space. So that will be a big challenge if that plays out, if that many people start coming back to the office. I think the other challenge is going to be your parking garage, because my sense is that people are going to continue to be reluctant for a time to utilize public transportation. And I think a lot more people are going to want to drive that may have previously utilized public transportation, which, as most of you know, in San Francisco, parking is a premium. There, you know, most developments, you're limited to the number of stalls you can have. So almost every building in San Francisco is way under parked. So if there's a high demand for parking, the garages just aren't going to be able to accommodate it. And then also figuring out how we manage to provide as much of a touchless experience as possible. So to answer your question, Ashley, I think, we're going to look towards the CDC. And the biggest thing will be what happens with the whole vaccination program. Because if we continue to get people vaccinated, if we do ever reach the, quote unquote, herd immunity, all these exercises kind of become moot, right? That if we're at a herd immunity and now the CDC is saying, okay, there's enough people vaccinated, you don't have to maintain a 6-foot distance any longer. Well, that takes care of our problems in the elevator. If enough people have been vaccinated and the CDC is saying, you don't have to wear masks anymore. That probably makes people a lot more comfortable getting on public transportation again. So maybe that eases up on the demand for parking. So we're going to continue with the programs we've got in place and just react depending on how quickly occupancy returns to a pre-pandemic level. And we're going to remain flexible like we have since last March and kind of adapt as things change and we get new information and new direction from various governmental agencies.
I thought I'd just add, Tom, it's kind of interesting on that point that in Los Angeles right now, they're inching that way. Vaccinated employees do not have to maintain the 6 feet distance. So we're starting to see a little more softening of those rules.
Right.
But it sounds like from what you're saying, anybody who's a tenant on this call will want to coordinate with their landlord around the ventilation questions, right? Making sure they're meeting the best practices requirements on that fresh air circulation, getting the best filter systems in place. And then on the postings, where I think there will be postings required both at the outside of the building, and then each employer or each entity will need to have their own postings in their private space as well. That's how I read them.
Right, because our exercise kind of stops at the tenant's front door, and then it's up to the tenant to determine the layout of their space and how they're going to maintain their distancing. We, as a landlord, our goal is to partner with our tenants and identify anything we can do, certainly to get their employees from the front door to their space, and what we can do in terms of assisting inside their space, whether it's cleaning or ventilation or whatever, that they can share with their employees to make them comfortable that the items are being addressed. But there's too many. Each tenant kind of has their own perspective of what level they want to go to in terms of changing their space or requirements for masking and that sort of stuff, that it's just kind of impossible for a landlord to be working inside a tenant's space and providing any kind of a program for that tenant.
Sure. And I think, one of the things we got a lot of questions on in advance of this program, and I think we're sort of leaning into it a little, is vaccinations. Can we require them of our employees? Can we track them? Can we ask about vaccination status? And I know, Holly, you touched on some of those, but I'm wondering if you can give a recap to some of those questions. And I think there are some specific issues around multi-tenant buildings where perhaps one tenant, it has very strict vaccination guidelines. Nobody who's not vaccinated is coming back, and other tenants don't have such strict guidelines. And so now you have a kind of a mix in the common areas, and there are some challenges there. So I was hoping, Holly, you could just kind of give a little bit more summary on that.
Sure thing. And before I jump in on that, I did see a question about those postings I mentioned. And yes, specifically in San Francisco, you have to have your social distancing protocol, which is Appendix A of the Safer at Home Health Order, and the Health and Safety Plan, which is Exhibit B of the most recent health directive. And just, I think I mentioned earlier, there's a May 6th health order that came down, and there's also a May 4th San Francisco face covering order. So there's lots of pleasure reading out there for you. But yeah, to jump into the vaccine question, which all of our clients are asking us right now, can we mandate vaccines? And the federal government, the EEOC, has said there's no violation of civil rights laws and protections if you mandate vaccines, as long as you are offering the sort of standard accommodations we offer, which are, for medical disabilities. So if somebody has certification from their doctor that due to a disability, they cannot get the vaccine, or religious accommodations. Religious accommodations have, in the many, many years I've been practicing, very rarely have I come across religious accommodations. I think if ever there was a time we might see those, they might come up now. And those are interesting to manage. I think, if you don't have good inside help, legal help, you might want to talk to employment counsel if you get the request for a religious accommodation to exempt from the vaccine. The big question is if you tell people they need the vaccine and they don't get it, then what's going to happen? And what everyone, both the state and the feds, are saying is, we're not telling you that if you terminate someone for not getting the vaccine, you're off the hook. And in fact, we've already seen some lawsuits filed for those employers who really were brave and went out in front and said, yep, mandating vaccine. It's a question that can be very specific to your workplace in terms of health and safety in your workplace. And so we're, especially given that the vaccine just was opened up to most adults recently, we're advising kind of a slow go on that front, and really starting by encouraging everyone to get it and trying to avoid being a situation where you're having to terminate someone. Right now, I think most guidance would say if people don't want to get it for whatever reason, you have to look at whether they can work remotely, right? And so that enables you to bring people in who are only vaccinated and not have to let people go who are not. So that's one sort of compromise for right now, but it will be specific to your workplace. If you're in a congregate care situation or others, you're going to have higher risk. And you may decide, yeah, we're going to mandate, and everybody's going to need to get it.
That makes sense. I mean, one of the questions that came up in advance was around not just employees, but also visitors, guests in your office. Can you ask them about vaccination status? Can you mandate vaccines? And I know, Tom, when we were talking in our pre-call, we were talking about a situation where a tenant has a strict vaccination policy and nobody who's unvaccinated is coming in. They have a repair that's a landlord responsibility under the case, and you have a vendor come out, and suddenly there's an issue with whether the vendor is vaccinated or not, and whether they can go in and do the work that you're required to have them do, or are they excluded because the tenant refuses to have unvaccinated folks in their office. And I'm just wondering, Holly, if there's been anything on guests or visitors, or if it's sort of, that's going to be a developing area. And then Tom, kind of your thoughts on how to handle those sorts of situations where tenants have just multiple different programs in place.
Right. I think for vendors, you'll want to think about your contract with that vendor. If you don't have a contract with the vendor, then, they kind of serve at your pleasure. And if, they're not willing to get vaccinated and you want them to be vaccinated, you probably have the right to cancel that contract without liability. The vendor might have a problem because, again, they may have somebody who has a note from their doctor that says, I can't get vaccinated, and yet they have customers who say, I don't want you coming in my property without it. So that's going to be, a rock and a hard place for some people. But as the sort of customer in that situation, you get to call the shots as long as it's consistent with your agreement. And of course, most written agreements did not anticipate the pandemic, right? So it might be you have an agreement and we're gonna have to look through it and see, do you have the right to terminate this agreement if they won't, can we make the argument that it's a threat to your health and safety to bring them in unvaccinated? Lots of interesting issues to work through there. Interested in your thoughts, Tom.
That's going to be a real challenge. And as Holly mentioned, these are kind of uncharted waters. And we're dealing with a situation right now that Ashley alluded to, where a major tenant in a building is insisting not only that all their employees are vaccinated, which I'm all for, because it doesn't really impact how I operate that building. It's up to the tenant to enforce that with their employees. However, they took it a step further and said that not only are employees required to be vaccinated, but anybody that enters our space must prove that they've been vaccinated. And then then we get into these issues with, well, what about vendors? A vendor may not choose to require their employees to be vaccinated. So then what we're learning from council is that we can't really ask if somebody is vaccinated if they're not required to be vaccinated. And we're not comfortable taking the position that a vendor has to have their tenants vaccinated, because we're also trying to avoid any potential co-employment issues that could arise from making those kind of demands. So it's very murky waters, and we're still trying to figure out. Our initial sense is the position we're going to take is, that's fine. We'll notify our vendors that you require your employee to be vaccinated before they enter their space. However, we're not going to police that for you. You will have to be the one to be the gatekeeper and checking that employee to see if they're vaccinated, because we don't want to get into that business. But as I said, this is very dynamic right now, and we haven't really taken a firm position yet. It's still being played out, and we're trying to figure out all the different nuances and potential things that might happen based on decisions we make. So it's going to be a challenge, though.
Thanks, Tom. And I know we want to save a little time for Q&A, so I think I'll just raise one more issue, and it's related to this, and that's what we've seen, or what you've seen change in terms of leases and contracts and the terms you're negotiating. And I'm wondering if you anticipate maybe seeing some of these things, vaccination status, or in your vendor contract, some sort of a clause about vaccination, start coming up. I know just in my work, we've seen changes to force majeure clauses. I know there's been more concern about wanting vendors to perform, even if there's a pandemic or a COVID related delay. So I'm just wondering if you've seen anything yet in the leasing or contract realm around things like vaccination or COVID generally.
Yeah, I can't say that we've seen it yet, but there's certainly discussion taking place around leasing. Unfortunately, the leasing activity has been dismal for the past 18 months because of this pandemic, but it is starting to pick up. So I think we are going to have to start addressing that. To a certain extent, we're already starting to address it with our vendor contracts, in terms of, as you mentioned, the requirement to perform regardless of the situation, to maintain supply chains. Haven't gotten into any kind of a requirement for vaccinations at this point, but I think all those are going to be on the table, and they're all going to be discussed.
Thanks, Tom. Holly, did you have anything else before we kind of end the presentation portion?
Well, I did get a question that I attempted to answer in the chat. Again, a question on, can you ask your employees if they've been vaccinated? There are lots of confusion around that. And I just thought I'd put a little more detail on that, which is, yes, you can, but you want to be careful, because if they say no, you can't say, well, why not? Because if they have a medical condition that prevents them from getting vaccinated, now you are asking for personal medical information, private medical information. So what you could, what we suggest is, please if you're vaccinated, please verify that you have been. We're tracking it, and we're strongly encouraging everyone to get vaccinated. And if you need an accommodation, please contact us. So that's the approach there when you're collecting that information. And again, you can ask for proof of vaccination. And then I suggest you don't actually keep that in their file or anything. If you did, it's probably got to go in a separate confidential medical file. But instead, you can just keep a list, vaccinated, verified, not yet vaccinated. And that way you're not, that information is not considered private medical information. Now, if you're getting into accommodations and somebody has a note, you're accommodating them, then yes, that's got to go in your separate confidential medical information file. And we are, recommending that if you're going to make an accommodation for someone, that you do ask for verification. And not just kind of agree to verify if they ask for it. I think you'll want to be careful with your precedent setting there and make sure that you're treating everyone the same, so that you don't have some managers who are saying, well, so-and-so said they need an accommodation. I know their situation. I'm not requiring them to get a doctor's note. And then a different manager is doing something with a different employee, right? And then you have potential discrimination claims there. So it's really good at the top to set your protocols now and really train your managers, be consistent. The COVID prevention plan does require kind of ongoing training. It doesn't specifically mention, the vaccines and collecting that information, but that's part of the package at this point. You're identifying risks and hazards, and you're kind of tackling these things as they come at you.
Hey, Holly, I saw a question where somebody asked if a landlord can request a list of vaccinated employees from their tenants. That would scare me, having that information, but how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I agree with you right now. I'm not sure that you would want, as the employer, to share that information
Right.
outside of the employment context. Now, we all know, like, the giants are, there are vendors now that are saying, in order to come to our facility, you have to show proof of vaccination. So the landlord has the option potentially of taking that step. Most landlords will not want to. But I'm with you. I think I'd hesitate unless the employee consented, and employees might consent, especially if we get to a place that it's hard to imagine. But if we are at a place where they're not required to wear masks in the common area, if they're vaccinated, it's probably unlikely. But that might be a reason to have verification at the landlord level. It's a thought.
Well, thanks, Tom and Holly. And I think we'll probably save these last few, 13 minutes for Q&A.